Hi, welcome to Wandering into the Woods, a podcast brought to you by the creators of Adventures with BeeGee. I'm Linda,
And this is Jarrett.
and today we'll be talking to you about our trip to Goliad State Park and all of the little adventure that we got to do there. Remember the Goliad? That's the place where about 450 Texian prisoners of war were killed in 1836 by the Mexican Army under General and President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna's command during the Texas Revolution for Independence. The Goliad City and State Park are situated by the San Antonio River. Spain actually established the city in 1749, which makes it one of the oldest settlements established by Westerners in Texas. Goliad State Park is not currently heavily inundated with visitors and offered a great option for paddling on the San Antonio River, which of course Jared could not resist. So when he told me about it, I was a little hesitant at first because I thought, Goliad, it's a pretty historic Texas site. I don't, with COVID going on, there might be a lot of people that want to go there. But when he reassured me
Nope.
it's camping, yeah, it's South Texas where the heat is unbearable, can be unbearable. I hesitantly agreed. And so part of our compromise was that we actually left on the night of July the 2nd. And we traveled down there. It was a 2.5-hour trip from Austin down to Goliad State Park. The park was open, and I believe it is open from 8 a.m. to
8 to 8.
8. Okay, so 8 to 8. So we
8 to 8.
we made it right on time.
Yeah, like 2 minutes before. And I'm sure they've got some grace period before they come out and actually shut the gate.
Yeah, so we made it right on time.
And they do shut the gate, if you were curious. It's
Yeah.
a thing that happens.
It is a thing to plan for. Keep that in mind. So we arrived there and we were able to set up our tent that evening, and it wasn't draining hot. We were we decided to set up our tent, or we had already chosen our spot beforehand because it helps. And in fact, right now, I think
You
you
have
have
to.
to reserve right ahead of
Yeah,
time.
you have to do everything online. Day passes, camping sites.
Yeah, so so Jared had handled all of that on Texas State Park website. And so we went to our spot, and we thought we had chosen a spot close to or right by the river, and it was. It was right by the river. The problem is that there's not a lot of cleared paths to the river other than those designated by the state park employees or staff. And
They've got one trail. There's not like where people just cut through and run
Right.
to the river. It's pretty thick foliage. It's pretty dense, so it's not like you could just make a straight line as the crow flies and go to the river. You've actually got to follow their path, which takes you down to the last pull-out side of the Goliad Paddling Trail.
Right, and it's not just dense, it's also painful. There's a lot of, what do you call those,
Sticker burrs?
yeah, a lot of sticker burrs, a lot of plants with sticker
I
burrs
don't
out
think
there.
that would have been an issue inside the woods, like going towards the river. That's just in the grass.
Well, it was still there were still a lot of them there,
Yeah, there's quite a few.
and, it did seem like there were a lot of plants that were thorny as well. So it's hard what I'm saying is it's hard to walk through it, so you can't even cut. It's hard for you to cut if you wanted to, if you wanted to avoid the trail. I would think it's a challenging thing to do.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we were right by the river, but you wouldn't be able to tell because of the thick and tall foliage in between our campsites and the river. The trail itself was about, I'd say, half a mile, if that.
There's less than that.
Yeah. So
I mean, the trail is longer, but to the
but
the
from
river
our
access.
campsite,
Yeah.
to the river access, and we were in the Jacales area. And Jared, what would be the anglicized pronunciation of that? How would you pronounce that?
I don't know.
Yes, that's how
Hasales? Something like that?
Jacales for those of you who don't speak Spanish. So it's in the Jacales area, and that's where we chose to set up. It's a spot where you can do tent setups and RV setups.
Yeah, it's a mixed site.
Yeah. It's right by so you're really close by your cars where you can park, and some people had their RVs in there as well. But we did see, 3 or 4 families while we were there.
Yeah, there was 2 RVs and another family camping besides us. So,
Yeah.
like 4 families.
But this were like, I would say we saw about 15 camping spots there. How many-
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in that campsite, we were in site 31, so
Uh-huh.
there's apparently at least 31 sites, I would think,
Oh,
based on that
crazy.
numbering system.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's true or not, but just based on the numbering system, from what I know, there could be up to 31 campsites.
Right. And we're saying that's to give you an idea of just how we were able to keep our distance from other people. It wasn't very crowded. There was just 4 families there,
Yeah.
or 4 groups. And you do have a female and male restrooms in the facility, very well maintained, very clean. I'd say for state parks, I would give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Really, they even have showers there as well. For those of you that can't stand the heat or don't
A
want to.
shower.
Oh yeah, sorry, a shower per restroom. So
Yeah.
one for females, one for males. And so and you also have a water fountains nearby near your tent areas.
Yes, all the RV campsites have
Yeah.
water, and you can just walk over and grab some
Yeah.
out of the closest spigot.
Yeah. And there's also dump stations for the RVs.
Mhm.
So we set up our tent. Jarrett took our giant battery that we have for these trips, mostly because we knew it was going to be unbearably hot. And the girls, BeeGee,
Is it Goal
Angela,
Zero?
yeah. Um,
That's what it's called.
okay.
Goal Zero.
So yeah, so Jarrett
Yeti.
took it. So Jarrett took it so that we could connect 2 of our little fans, and we could try to stay cool throughout the night. Which most of the night was hot, but towards the early hours, it really starts cooling off. And so I was
It was a
happy.
low of like 73, so.
Yeah, so I run generally cold, so for me it was chilly, and I was more than happy to, by the morning, start cuddling with Jarrett, right in between Jarrett and BG. They turned me into a sandwich, and that was nice. But don't be fooled, because within a few hours it was blistering hot, and I was more than ready to get out of there and return home. So,
Mhm.
but before we got to do that, we went to a local restaurant nearby around 8 a.m. and got ourselves some breakfast tacos and ate them at the square, the historic square, which is really nice. Just
Yep.
parked out there. Really, we learned a little bit about a 1902 or 1904 tornado that went through the city and tore it apart. And there's a little plaque outside the courthouse that tells you about it, as well as other historical cool buildings in the area that you get to see in downtown Goliad. And after we had our tacos and coffee, I took Jarrett over so that he could begin his rafting adventure. So, Jarrett, do you want to take it from here and tell us about your rafting adventure?
So Linda dropped me off at the Goliad Paddling Trail. It's a 6.6 mile. I GPSed it. It was closer to 7 for me. Paddling trail, you could take probably a canoe or a kayak is what most people would take. I took my pack raft because, I don't have a kayak anymore. And it worked out pretty fine. You put in off of Highway 59, if that means anything to anyone. You can Google it. There's actually a paddling trail, like trailhead. I found it in Google. That's how we were able to get there.
Oh God, it was so hard to find though.
It wasn't that hard.
For me, for those of us that aren't as experienced in finding those dirt entrances, yeah, it's hard.
So it's a little dirt road that takes you down under Highway 59. There's a bridge. And then there are some long metal stairs that you take down actually to the San Antonio River. So I set up, got my pack raft inflated, got everything stowed away, got my GoPro set up. So I set it up on the front using a helmet adhesive sticky pad. And then I threw everything into the river and I started down. It took me a little less than 3 hours to do it all.
Nice.
I'm asking you.
I wasn't counting on account of, at first, we went back and took a nap, the girls and I. And then we were just trying to survive in the heat, and we're packing up.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how long you were gone.
So around 3 hours, depending on flow rate. Texas Parks guesstimates that it takes about 2.5 hours to 4 hours, depending on your skill, flow rate of the river. When I went, it was kind of brown, and I assumed the water was up a little bit higher because it's been raining. So it's probably flowing faster than normal. It clearly floods a lot because there's a bunch of trees falling down in the river and falling across it. So there's tons of snags and shredders and things.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's too dangerous because you're not moving really fast and there's not particularly rapids. There's also 2 pull-out points. There's one at Ferry Street. So if you don't want to pay to enter the park, the day fee,
Mm-hmm.
you can pull out before, and it's a little bit shorter, like a mile shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to go the whole way, you can go to Goliad State Park where we did and, pull out. And then I got out and walked the quarter of a mile or so back to our campsite. Apparently, it's also known for fishing. There's quite a bit of sunfish, bass, and catfish. I saw a few fish
Mm-hmm.
while I was out there. I assume they were catfish because they were just kind of lounging around like on the sides.
They're like, I'm a fish, I'm a fish.
Yeah. I didn't see any snakes. Didn't really see any turtles. There was a heron or a crane of some sort
Mm-hmm.
that I think thought I was chasing it because it would land and then I would get close to it and it would fly way down the river.
It's like, oh, there's my stalker again.
Yeah, and then I would get close and it would fly way down the river. So it went on for a while. I guess it eventually got smart and just went back the other way or went to the side.
Did it tell you no pictures, please?
It did. I mean, it's hard to take pictures in a river, when you're moving.
Right,
to take your phone out.
As you're paddling.
Yeah, I mean, I would stop paddling. I wouldn't paddle to take a picture, but
Mm-hmm.
then you're just at the mercy of wherever your boat wants to
Right.
go and spin. So I didn't get any pictures of the bird. But I mean, the river itself, it's moving. It's not terribly fast. It's fairly easy. I mean, 7 miles to paddle if you're not ready, or at least semi-fit, is kind of difficult.
I asked Jared how deep it was too, because those of us who aren't great swimmers might want to know how deep it was. And how deep did you say it was, Jared?
I mean, I didn't stick my paddle in everywhere. I mean, like I said, it was dark brown, so I think the water level was up higher than normal. I mean, at least for right now in summer.
Mm-hmm.
But the couple of times I stuck my paddle in, it never went over halfway. So I would say less than 3 feet in almost all the spots that I tested it, which wasn't be all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's some deep spots where, it would be overhead. But for the majority of it, it was probably less than 3 feet.
Okay.
But, going back to not a hard paddle. You just kind of flow. You could take a break if you want. The only big issue is there's snags everywhere from fallen trees in it. So that's one thing you have to be mindful for.
Mm-hmm.
Probably if you're in a kayak or canoe, it's not a big deal. You just hit it and go over it or go around it. But being in a pack raft, I had to be a little more careful.
Right.
Probably wouldn't have popped my boat, but it's not a chance I wanted to take, 6 miles away from the campsite and then having to swim that or whatever,
Definitely.
or trying to patch it. So yeah, I got to be a little more attentive in a pack raft. But if you're in a kayak or a canoe, I mean, snags and things like that are no big deal. Back when I had a kayak, you could just kind of roll over that stuff and not be too concerned.
And if you want to know more about pack rafting, listen to our previous episode about pack rafting in Lake Georgetown. Shameless plug here.
Yep, episode 12, Linda's first time getting in a pack raft, where she got the good one and I got the terrible one.
And I got to learn what pack rafting was.
Yeah.
Overall.
And just going down the river, it's pretty smooth, and I paddled almost the entire time, but I guess you could not and still make it down. As far as obstacles, there's not a whole lot other than I mentioned the snags. There was an area where there's a couple of flows caused by either rocks or trees falling down, which you have to kind of navigate through. If you're unskilled, it pretty much takes you the way you need to go, so there's not much to worry about. You could probably do it, and if you're in a hard boat, it's not a concern at all. You would just hit whatever and stop or go over it. That would have been the first obstacle. The second, there was a large tree that had kind of fallen over the river itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then another tree that stuck out from the other side. So you just had to do an S. I mean, not real quick, but with some concern. You couldn't have been real slow. So it took
You had to be paying attention.
You had to be paying attention, and it took some timing and some knowledge of, just how you needed to stroke. But if you didn't panic, you'd have been fine. And even if you hadn't have made your turns, as long as you were kind of close, you would have been hit in the face with some branches probably, but, nothing terrible would have happened. And then the third hard obstacle, someone had taken the time to build out, like a little rock dam, like you see along rivers, if you've ever been to one, where it's kind of shallow. And then that met up with a tree that had fallen over.
Oh, no.
So you had to, there's probably like a 4-foot gap you needed to shoot between the rock wall and the fallen over tree. And then you hit just a little bit of turbulence. and something that was close to rapids, but not really. And you just go down it, and that's pretty much it. And so those would have been the hardest things involved with the river. So most people, probably with luck and a tad bit of knowledge, could have been able to do it. And if not, it's slow moving enough where you could have backpedaled and gotten a good feel for what you needed to do and then gone down it.
And it's not very deep, so if you are to flip over, it's probably likely it's not the end of the world unless you're shorter than,
Yeah. So if you flipped over, it's not like you were going to flip over and then get caught under something or got pushed against a rock or one of these fallen trees. You could have just stood up.
Yeah, and that's what I'd be more concerned about with shallower water, that you're more likely to hit yourself if you fall or,
Yeah.
than
But like in rapids,
drown. Yeah.
so if they're going real fast, it's real easy to get pushed up against something and not be able to get up.
Right.
But since this is so shallow and it's not even the tough parts, we're not moving real fast, you'd probably just be able to stand up anyways.
So do you recommend it for beginner paddlers?
Yeah, definitely. If you're trying to build endurance, it's definitely good. 7 miles is a long way to go, but it is beginner. If you want to fish, it's probably pretty good. I fish on a rare occasion. So
I don't know that you've gone fishing since I met you 13 years ago.
I've got a couple times
Okay.
over lunch breaks with people.
Okay.
And I've got my little tiny fold out. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's called a pin fishing pole, but it's slightly bigger.
Oh, Jarrett's been fishing without me knowing.
Yep, occasionally.
You think you know someone.
Yeah.
Then you find out they go fishing.
Yeah, that I bought it. I bought it in McAllen when we lived there. But anyways, so I'm not a big fisher, so I don't know if you need to like anchor, but it's moving, so it's not like you'd be able to stop and cast. So you've got to kind of prepare, for fishing, if that's your thing. As far as rivers go, it's kind of unique. It's my first, I guess, real big interaction with the San Antonio River other than the San Antonio River Walk, which is all fake anyways.
Ooh, you really are stirring the pot.
No,
here,
but
sir.
they pump water in, they make it deeper.
Sir, let's not discuss this very turbulent subject, or
Is it? They fancy the river up. Yeah, they fancy the river up downtown, so it's nicer.
No.
Okay. Yeah, they pump water in and stuff. So other than the San Antonio River Walk, this is definitely my first interaction with the San Antonio River. And looking at all the snags and the fallen trees, apparently it floods a lot.
Yeah.
Because there's all sorts of random things also, in those fallen trees and giant brush piles where things have just been piling up for years.
Or maybe it's different by area of the San Antonio River.
Possibly.
It's probably cleaner or closer to San Antonio. Maybe.
But, being used to, the Blanco, Llano, Colorado, and San Marcos, it kind of like the banks. It's much steep, almost the entire way down. It's steep banks.
So who's in charge of maintaining the river area? Is it a county or a state responsibility?
I don't think anyone.
Oh.
Texas Parks is technically in charge of rivers, I guess. The rivers
I'm
themselves.
just wondering because, I wonder if this is, I don't know. I guess we can research it later.
Okay. But yeah, the banks are a lot steeper. So there's not like as many places to get out like you would normally think in a river. So if you've ever been tubing or something, you see like fairly low banks, but the San Antonio has like 6 foot. I don't know, at least 3 to 6 foot banks, like almost the entire way. And there was barely any sandbars or any like sand locations on the edge to get out. Okay. And so I thought that was neat because a couple of times, I was like, oh,
it's a real river.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's I don't know. It's just not conducive to getting out if you ever needed to. So be prepared, or keep that in your mind that you may have to slog through some mud and some steep banks if you need to get out for whatever reason, if there's injury or if you've got to take a bathroom break.
Well, thank you, Jarrett. Thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Definitely.
Appreciate it.
And now it's time for our segment, What the Haters Say. So from an anonymous user, they give it 2 stars. They were disappointed! Number 1, hiking trails start and stop at someone's tent site. Number 2, the only easy fishing access to the San Antonio River is the Canoe takeout location. Number 3, the office was out of firewood.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, no. Number 4, the bathrooms were mostly clean, but the walls and corners had cobwebs.
It's an outdoors park.
Yeah.
You cannot have cobwebs in a state park restroom, Jarrett.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
Number 5, so many stickers. There were quite a bit of sticker burrs, and their dog was covered in them.
People need to fix that.
Number 6, the bike trails need some maintenance. Number 7, no canoe rental. In town, in the park, or in Goliad.
How can you have a canoe entrance but no canoe rentals?
I
It's
know.
unacceptable for a state park
And
to not have that, Jarrett.
number 8, no place in town had firewood because it's their job to
Because
supply.
it's South Texas and you don't need firewood. That's just,
I'm guessing they went in winter. But I mean,
even then.
Goliad State Park is not known for its hiking trails. It's known for its historical site. So going to the Presidio, the Mission, and I forget the guy's name.
Texas.
Zungia's?
You don't need firewood.
Is that his name? Zungia?
Zuniga?
There's someone there who's born. So there's a birth site, the Presidio, and the Mission. So those are the really key attractions, plus the paddling trail.
Yeah.
So not having trails or having an issue with them is kind of weird. Also, the only easy fishing access, I mean, combining that with the canoe is, I mean, you should have done a little research and come prepared, I would think, instead of...
It's just what I'm finding really odd about this person is that they expected the state park to kind of work like an adventure park or, some sort of private recreational park. And that's not what it is. It's a state park.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I get it. Like Colorado Bend State Park, they've got canoe rentals and they have firewood, but all this stuff is like on the website that says that.
Right.
And so it's pretty clear to see that Goliad wouldn't have canoe rentals. But at the same time, they also said that it was like a 3-day weekend and the wood was sold out. That's probably why the park was actually packed that weekend when it's normally not, and all the wood was sold out.
Right.
So just kind of a weird review. It's like they've never been out in nature. Sticker burrs, beggar's lice. I mean, anytime I go hiking, I expect the girls to be covered in those because that's what happened. I mean, I guess if it's not beggar's lice, sticker burrs, or prickly pear needles,
Right.
like we haven't had a very good outdoor activity if they don't have some of those in them.
Exactly.
So that's it for what this hater said.
Well, and another hater said, it's hot, too hot to go for a walk or even move. Bring an outside fan and sit. Other than that, it's clean and wide pull-through spots. Not many, 1 through 20. 13, 15, 17 are the best spots. Some shaded better than others. Nice fire pits and a grill. So this person gave it 3 out of 5 stars because of the heat.
They must be a winter Texan.
Yeah, I want to say, this is South Texas. It's going to be hot.
Yeah, but I mean, Texas
and it's going to be humid.
Depending on when they went, they're right next to a river. I mean, it's 100 degrees with a crap ton of humidity.
Right.
Being that close to the river.
We took 2 fans.
Yeah.
And we were still hot. And there was condensation coming in from our tent because of the moisture, just how humid it was.
Yeah, so my guess is they were a winter Texan and just have no clue about what heat is.
Or maybe they're just not outdoorsy people.
Maybe. They could have been RVers, so coming outside is just something they're not used to.
Yeah. Well, that's what the haters are saying, Jarrett.
Yep.
Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed listening to our adventure at Goliad State Park and Jared's adventure paddling through the San Antonio River.
If you like what you've heard, make sure you check out our website at adventureswithbg.com. That's the letters B and G. You can also find us on social at Adventures with BeeGee. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you could give us a 5-star review, that would mean a lot. We're small and growing, and we definitely need your support.
Thanks for listening. And as always, stay safe as you wander into the woods.